Hello, this is GuineaPigDan once again with another model kit video. We're going to construct Mega Man X's blade armor. Yeah, so this is the fourth armor kit video I'm doing. Yeah, we did fourth armor X, Zero, regular armor X, and now this one. And if we look at the box, there are a lot of pieces in here. X's regular armor was pretty simple to put together. This one is pretty complicated, similar to the fourth armor. So let's get started. I'm going to do the hands first since these are pretty simple. I filmed this in May 2023 and I'm doing this voiceover in August 2025. Sorry for the delay posting this video. It's kind of odd that blade armor is one of my favorite armors in the X series. I just like how it's able to dash really far in all four directions, making it agile, but at the same time not as OP as the Falcon armor in X5, which gives you invincible flight. The blade armor's upward dash is also a big improvement over the Max armor from X3, where the upward dash has a delay. Unfortunately, my favorite armor appears in Mega Man X6, which is usually regarded as one of the worst X games. For any non-Mega Man viewers watching who may not know, series director Keiji Inafune wanted to end the X series on X5 and then do the Zero series on the Game Boy Advance. Capcom, however, decided to continue the X series without Inafune's involvement and rush out a sixth game a year after the fifth game, and the level design and gameplay took a huge hit in quality due to lack of testing. All of X's blade armor hands here. So let's move on to the next step. Okay, the blade armor also comes with some sword parts very similar to what Zero has, except these are like a lighter blue. They probably look clear on camera, but I'll cut these out just ahead of time just to get these out of the way. X's saber blade is a lighter blue than the Zero figurine saber, which matches X6's artwork. However, in-game, the Z saber blade is still green. Alright. I'm not going to cut these parts out just yet. I'll do that when I start constructing the sword that comes out of X's buster. Alright. Well, would you look at that? I almost missed. There are some extra hand parts. Now, these red ones are for X and blade armor holding Zero's saber, but these white ones are what I like to call model kit DLC if you want X and his regular armor to hold the Z saber. So we'll cut these out and assemble them. Other new armor in X6, the ninja-themed shadow armor, is also pretty cool, and it would be nice if we got a kit of that too. It's strange how X6 is a travesty on level design, yet the armors are still fun to use. X6 repeats a mistake X5 made where you have to collect all four armor parts before you're allowed to use them, but once you complete them, they're totally worth it. The game also gives you a nerfed version of the Falcon armor at the beginning, so there's no reason to play unarmored X unless you're doing this masochistic self-imposed challenge. There we go. Alright. See the little holes for the Z-sabers. Okay, these are all done. Okay, one thing that's kind of different with this model kit, it's very subtle, but I saw it in like the instruction manual. For some reason, X's face parts now have like very little, ABC labels on them that you have to cut off. I don't know why they did that, but the reason I wanted to take these out was because just like the other X model kit, this one has like a special part you put in the mouth, so I'll cut that out right now. This is for X's mouth. I like to think he's screaming in terror at how awful Mega Man X6 is. If you think that's bad, just wait till you play X7. There we go. Now X is yelling. Ah! Okay. As a kid, I only owned X1 on Super NES and Mega Man 4 on Game Boy. My only glimpses of X2 was seeing it in Nintendo Power magazine. I don't recall if we had the issue showing off X3 though. I played X4 with a friend of mine on Sega Saturn and didn't know anything about any of the other Mega Man X games until I found their soundtracks being posted by fans online in the 2000s. I got Mega Man Anniversary Collection and the X Anniversary Collection both for GameCube, and they allowed me to experience both the classic series console games for the first time, as well as almost all the X games I had missed out on. X7 and X8 weren't included on the GameCube Anniversary Collection, probably because they were too recent. I don't remember how I first learned that X6 was regarded as one of the worst X games. It probably came from me looking up walkthroughs on how to 100% the game, and seeing comments online from fan sites saying the game is too hard, or that the game testers must have only played the game using the Ultimate armor. I eventually got the Legacy collections on Switch that include X7 and X8, and they add a rookie mode for all the games to make them easier. I guess it's a band-aid for broken level design, so newcomers can't complain about games like X6 being too hard. As if the Ultimate Armor and Black Zero cheat codes weren't enough. I've seen there's fan hacks that try to fix the design flaws in both X5 and X6, however I haven't played them yet. It'd be interesting to see what these games could have been had their development not been rushed and they were properly tested. Kind of ridiculous whenever it's fans that have to step up to fix these broken, rushed games.
Okay, so the red gem here, it has some hinges here. At first they might look like nubs, but actually no, these are supposed to be there. They're the locking parts for going into the yellow thing here. So it's a good thing I didn't accidentally cut those off.
Yet another instance of taking a while to insert a gem into a small part. These are my least favorite parts to put together.
Wow. Okay, come on. Not going in all the way. Shit. Oh, wait, there we go. Don't worry, that wasn't a things breaking snap. That was a good everything's in place snap. So
I chose the teeth gritting face just to have a different expression from the other armors I've built.
there we go. There, slightly pissed off X. Staring at you. He's like, where's my body?
I notice X's Z Saber hilt is a lighter yellow than Zero's Saber hilt. I'll compare the two on camera in a bit. I'm not sure if this is a mistake or a deliberate redesign. Most likely it's just to make manufacturing easier, having X's Saber share the same yellow as the lighter yellow parts on the blade armor, and Zero's Z Saber matches his hair and gold crest on his chest. So they don't have to make a separate tray for the Saber hilt that's colored different from the rest of the parts of the kit.
Now, don't lose track of which one is which.
I like the blade armor mostly for its dash ability. I don't care about its other abilities like its charge shot. If I want power or spike immunity, I'll choose the shadow armor. One aspect about X6 that's criticized often is if you choose the wrong armor, you can get stuck in certain places. That's why playing unarmored X is a sadistic self-imposed challenge, because you can get stuck in areas that require the air dash, and unarmored X can't air dash. There's an area in Metal Shark player stage that can't be escaped because it requires the blade armor's air dash to clear a giant pit to reach an armor capsule. The beginning of Gates' lab has a giant wall of spikes that can't be cleared without Zero's double jump, the blade armor's air dash, or the shadow armor's spike immunity. And there's another area in Gates' lab that requires X to mid-air dash over a bottomless pit, which is impossible if you're unarmored or using the shadow armor, which also can't air dash. The only way for unarmored X to bypass places that require the air dash is to abuse a glitch where the magma blade allows you to hover in midair, and that's something you'd only learn from online walkthroughs. It's not good game design if you're required to use glitches to proceed, and X6 does have quite a couple glitches.
That looks nice. Okay.
Previous X games were designed so the player could theoretically beat any stage with no armor parts, since they're optional, with the exception of the unskippable leg and buster parts in the first X game. X5 lets you start with a force armor if you choose X in the intro stage, but you lose it if you choose to play Zero at the beginning instead. So X5's levels still had to be designed to account for a player using unarmored X. Since X6 starts the player out with a Falcon armor no matter what, I suppose the game's designers thought there'd be no reason to design levels around unarmored X, and yet they still left unarmored X as playable. Oopsie daisy.
This is beautiful looking. Look at that. Alright, now let's see. And apparently these can flip open somehow? Wait. Okay, there's some instructions in Japanese here that I can't read that explain how they're supposed to flip out, I guess. Okay, I can't read Japanese, but just from the visuals, it looks like you're supposed to use this weird hook thing. I did this off camera, but you can remove these flaps and replace them with alternate parts that I'll build right now.
Here I am building the extra flaps for the blade armor's buster. I guess I got confused by the extra hilt parts, wondering if they went on the sides, until I saw the yellow crossguard parts can be swapped out, making them flip backwards or stand straight forward. It's a nice bit of customization for the armor.
Oh, I see. I can trade them in so they can point inward like that or outward like this. Okay, now I see the difference.
You can see game artwork of the blade armor adjusting the crossguard inward or outward, but I could never tell the flaps on the blade armor's buster were opening up based on in-game sprites. It's pretty nice this kit gives you the option of X swinging the beam saber out of either his buster or wielding Zero's Z Saber.
Just for sake of completion, this is what it'll look like if I put in the alternate pieces. That's kind of neat. Looks like Buster's opening up. And here I don't have to use the hook thing. They pop just right out. This is pretty cool looking. So it's like almost a Buster flower. Look at that. Okay, so this hook has a secondary purpose. Whoops. You can also use it to push out the arm cannon part here, so then you can put on the sword. So I'll just assemble a sword part. I don't know if I'll put it on. Let's see.
Sorry if my commentary is more about what an awful game X6 is, rather than talking about building this model kit.
Model kits for the Max armor with Triad Thunder coloring, the Falcon armor, and Zero's black armor
Were all released a while ago, so those would be neat to assemble sometime, and kits for Sigma from the first X game, and Axel and his white armor are planned for the future. If a kit of the Shadow armor is ever released, it'd be interesting to assemble an orange Z Saber blade, if the kit bothers to match in-game sprites, that is.
Okay, sorry I didn't show this on camera, but I just figured out, these are actually for like different sword effects, so that's what all these spiky things do, and they look pretty cool. Make this sword look really intense. So I guess I'll have X pose with the Z Saber later. So that's what these parts are supposed to be for. So I'll just go on to doing the body now.
The plot of X6 is that some evil scientist named Gate found a piece of Zero after his death in X5 and uses Zero's programming to create a new virus called the Nightmare. By the way, due to the game being rushed, the English translation of the game's dialogue is really bad. The Nightmare enemies appear in many stages and will attack Reploids you can rescue, and it's really important to save as many of these Reploids as you can because they will give you parts that will make the game more bearable, like higher jumps, faster running, faster charging, etc. X5 had a part system where you win a part if you beat a boss at a high enough level. However, X5 didn't explain the part system very well, and you can only get 8 of them in total. X6's part system is an improvement, increasing the number of parts you can get, and making it simpler to obtain them just by rescuing these Reploids. The number of parts you can equip is dependent on how many Nightmare Souls you've collected, which Nightmare viruses drop after you destroy them. So it's like a semi-experience point system. So X6 makes a few improvements to the part system, but then it also takes a step back by making it possible for the Nightmares to possess these Reploids, forcing you to kill them, and then you lose whatever part they may have had. So if you're going to 100% this game, expect to reset levels a lot, and there's 128 of these Reploids to save, 16 per level, so good luck trying to find them all.
There we are.
I accidentally cut X's back with an X-Acto knife while removing the little runner nubs, but the cut is covered by the back part of the blade armor's chest piece that goes on top, so the cut wouldn't be visible. Poor X, even he can't escape X6 without a scar.
Alright. Now we do X's underpants again.
X6 is such a terrible game, in a few moments it will physically hurt me.
Ah, shoot. Now I got my skin caught in there. Just a moment. Okay, that hurt. Ugh. But, next time I should be more careful with my fingers putting these parts together. It's lucky I didn't cut myself with the X-Acto knife or with these, cutter things. Wow.
Not only is the level design bad, it's also wildly inconsistent. Shield Sheldon is one of the shortest stages and it's pretty easy, just having a few laser and mirror puzzles to reach the boss. It only gets more complicated if you take the optional path with longer laser puzzles to get all the items. But then Metal Shark Player has a grueling stage with an instant death ceiling that tries to crush you, and Blaze Heatnix's stage has you fight the same ring mini-boss over and over. The bosses themselves are also inconsistent in difficulty, some of them being pushovers like Commander Yamark, and Heatnix himself is incredibly easy in contrast to his really difficult stage. But then you have bosses like Rainy Turtleoid and the Nightmare Mother and Gates Lab that are a slog to fight. I imagine again this was due to the game being rushed and not tested, so the difficulty of the levels and bosses goes all over the place, being either too hard or too easy.
Put this here. Oh, come on. How hard can this be? There we go. There we are. X's body is now finished.
Commander Yamark's stage is one of the easier ones despite some annoyances like praying mantis robots that can respawn after you destroy them, and some areas with blind jumps where the screen doesn't scroll down far enough to let you see spikes below you, and Yamark himself is the easiest boss in the game. Ground Scarovich's stage has an interesting concept on paper, with sub-areas that have randomly generated terrain so the stage is different each time. However, the only obstacles are tons of nightmare viruses and clumps of what looks like dung being thrown at the player that you can destroy. Not a very interesting stage concept. Oh, and whether you can get the heart tank and capsule in that stage is random, so you might have to replay the stage several times to get them. Not a difficult stage, but annoying if you're doing 100%. Infinity Maginian stage has a giant mini-boss in the background that attacks you, that's difficult to deal with if you have low health or you aren't using any armor. But if you come prepared, the stage is just a downward slope that's over quickly, with the mini-boss being a slight inconvenience, and Maginian himself is the only real challenge of the stage. Oh, I forgot to mention, each time you visit a certain stage, it'll trigger nightmare effects in other stages, environmental hazards that get in your way. Some of them are pointless, like visiting Rainy Turtleoid stage spawns Rain and Brown Scarfage's stage that slows you down so little that it's barely a hazard and can be ignored. Some effects are really annoying, like visiting Infinity Maginian stage causes Commander Yammark and Rainy Turtleoid stages to turn dark. Visiting Blaze Heatnix's stage makes falling fireballs spawn in Blizzard Wolffang stage and will melt a wall in one area, allowing you to access a secret area where you can rescue more Reploids and find the Spare Bodies capsule. One of the few times a Nightmare effect is helpful. If the Nightmare effects behave more like this one in Blizzard Wolffang stage, changing the stage layout, allowing you to find different items or take an alternate path, similar to how in X1 beating certain stages would trigger an environmental effect in another stage, I think that would have been more interesting than just having the Nightmare effects be annoying hazards that get in your way. Something not explained in the game, replaying a stage will cause Nightmare viruses to stop giving you Nightmare souls, and to make them start dropping Nightmare souls again, you have to trigger a new Nightmare effect in that stage that overwrites the previous one. X5 and X6 are both bad at explaining certain game mechanics that require outside help to decipher.
Okay, I thought some X-Acto knife trimming would do the trick, but let's see. Maybe I'm just not putting it in straight, I don't know. But, oh, there we go. That did the trick. Okay. Alright. Come on, get in the little hole. There we are. Arms are done, now let's do the legs.
I almost forgot, Gate creates an evil Zero clone called the Zero Nightmare that you can fight if you find hidden teleporters in any of the 8 stages, and if you beat it, you'll unlock the real Zero who has come back from the dead somehow, saying after he was blown to bits at the end of X5, he hit himself while he repaired himself. Okay, whatever, another instance of bad translation. Zero has a glitch with Shield Sheldon's weapon where if the guard shell is active, a Zero Saber will ignore enemy invincibility frames and allow you to destroy enemies and bosses really fast. In a game with patches of difficult enemies like in Gate's Lab, a glitch like this is very welcome. Oh, and if X beats the 8 bosses without beating Nightmare Zero, then Nightmare Zero disappears and you lose the ability to unlock Zero. The game does give you a different ending if you never unlock Zero, though. According to the cutting room floor, if the game is hacked to allow X to fight Nightmare Zero after the 8 bosses are beaten, Nightmare Zero becomes much more difficult, and upon defeat gives you Zero in his black armor, rewarding the player for being patient to unlock Zero. But again, due to rushed development, a programming oversight prevents this from happening, and the only way to play Black Armor Zero is with a cheat code.
I think that's everything. Oh, that went in very easy. Remember, regular X's foot part took a bit to get into place, but this one, wow, went in really smoothly. Okay, there we go. Now we have the foot parts.
Nightmare Zero got its own Kotobukiya model kit, but I don't know if I'll ever get one. Black Armor Zero is a lot cooler, and I'd rather get that one instead. If you go back into one of the hidden teleporters where you fight Nightmare Zero, a different boss named Hymax appears. He's one of Gate's servants, and he has a very unusual way of being beaten, by stunning him with a boss weapon first, and then attacking him with a charge shot or Zero's techniques. The game doesn't explain this, though, so it can be confusing how to beat him. And this is yet another place in the game where the player can get stuck if you visit too early as X and you haven't obtained any boss weapons. If you beat Hymax, you get access to Gate's Lab early, and revisiting the hidden teleporters again lets you fight Dynamo from X5 over and over, and you can attack Dynamo to grind for Nightmare Souls. Another way to access Gate's Lab early without beating the 8 bosses is to collect 3,000 Nightmare Souls. However, I wouldn't recommend entering Gate's Lab early unless you're doing some sort of insane challenge run, because X6's final stages are infamous for how incredibly difficult they are, taking many of the worst obstacles from the 8 stages and shoving them all into a slogfest of difficult enemies and difficult bosses like the Nightmare Mother, and a more difficult fight with Hymax where he has barriers you have to destroy, and Gate himself where he's immune to all attacks and can only be damaged by reflecting his own attacks against him, making for a long, tedious fight. Gate is actually easier than the bosses that come before him. He's just really annoying because you have to wait for him to fire the attack that you use to damage him.
Okay, off camera I managed to get this gray part on that got stuck, and also the yellow part that goes all around the vent, so I'll just show myself on camera getting the last one on. Because, oh, wow, that was really easy. Okay.
After you beat Gate, it's revealed he rebuilt Sigma, and then Sigma kills Gate, and you have to go fight Sigma again. Gate has another servant named Izok who really wants to capture Zero, but you never fight Izok, and he just dies for no reason after Gate is defeated.
He seems like an insignificant character, but in the Mega Man fandom, there's wild fan theories that Isaac and Surges from X2 are actually robot avatars of Dr. Wily. If that was the case, though, you'd think Capcom would give these characters more significance than just appearing in one game and then dying. The final stage is the boss rush, and when you reach Sigma, his first form is beyond easy because he's a robot zombie due to his defeat in X5 being so devastating. His second form, called Hell Sigma, is a little more challenging, but if you're using the Shadow Armor or Zero's glitch with the Guard Shell, Sigma's second form will go down quickly. Overall, the best way to enjoy X6 is probably to just play with a walkthrough that tells you how to find all the parts and explains all the game's mechanics that the game itself doesn't explain well. I can play this game fine and kind of enjoy it, but only because I know the bullshit it throws at the player and how to get around it. X6 was a game that unfortunately was rushed out to try and give the PlayStation one more X game to capitalize off the series before the PlayStation 2 came out, and it marks a decline in the X series that it's never recovered from. X7 came out in 2003 and tried to change the formula by making it 3D, but that failed badly, and fans often debate whether X6 or X7 is the worst game in the series. X8 tried to course correct by going back to 2D, but the damage was already done. There was also an RPG spin-off, X Command Mission, and then a remake of the first game, Maverick Hunter X, but I've never played those, so I can't comment on them. While X and Zero have had appearances in Marvel vs. Capcom and X Dive, there hasn't been a proper ninth installment to the X series in years. It was kind of a missed opportunity that Capcom did two NES throwback games with classic Mega Man 9 and 10, but they never did a similar Super NES throwback for an X9. That's the legacy of X6, a rushed-out game that marked the beginning of the end of the beloved Capcom series. But at least it gave us this awesome model kit, and that makes it all worth it. Here's the final assemblage. Thank you for watching, and check out future model kit videos on my Twitch, GuineaPigDan.tv. Bye, everybody. So, there. The legs are complete. Now I just need to assemble the whole figure. Alrighty. Now to finally assemble it. Okie doke. Fix his head. Right there. Okay. Put it there. If I want to have a buster, I can remove that. Yep, that is a huge ass buster. Man. Okay. Okay, come on. No. No, it's like, give me my legs. Now, I guess I'll. Okay. Go. Legs. You know what? Come on. I don't know if they're in all the way. Good enough. Oh god damn it. I'll just separate. There. And now. There we go. Ta-da! It is finished. Okay, hopefully the camera's. That is very nice looking. I did a good job. And I'll remove the buster once again to just replace it with the hand.
And since it comes with red hands, I can, if I wanted, I could like put the Z-Saber on the 4th armor, since that's Rising Fire colored. So here we go. I'm going to do what I've always wanted to do. Okay. There we go. Here we are, the Spider-Man pointing meme with 3 X model kits. This is a masterpiece. Alrighty. GuineaPigDan signing out. I hope you enjoyed this model kit construction video.